Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star is in New York right now covering the Pacers as they begin their odyssey. How's it going, brother?
Doing all right, man. Yep, flew in this morning, so getting ready for this. It's really cool. I think just that this is rivalries being renewed. Obviously, I think Tyrese Halliburton made a point of saying like it's kind of fitting that you get back in, and this is one of the teams you face. I mean, it's obviously different this time around. I mean, certainly there was a lot of bad blood that kind of kicked up overall that time with Reggie Miller and John Starks and all those guys and all the back and forth. In this case, Halliburton's close with all these guys, at least several of these guys. I mean, he and Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart all played together at FIBA, the World Cup, this offseason. He and Brunson became really close. He said, that Brunson was one of the first guys he called when the Pacers qualified, when they, clinched a playoff berth and stuff. And so they keep in touch a good bit. So it's not going to be as chippy, frankly, as the Bucks series was. But you're going to see kind of the old fan rivalries, like Pacers fans going to have reason to hate Spike Lee again. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be entertaining.
And Tyrese is not quite Reggie Miller. He doesn't, like you just mentioned, he's close to a lot of these guys. Reggie wasn't close to anybody, especially he had the old school mentality of, hey, when we're playing, I hate you. And I love that. You're going to miss that. Man, you can think back and you can feel the angst in that tournament and how awesome that it was.
Yeah, no, I mean that happened in Milwaukee. I mean, the Pacers had a very chippy, bordering on nasty battle with Milwaukee. Like you tell Lillard still plays that way. Lillard still has that kind of chip on his shoulder. Patrick Beverley certainly does, and Patrick Beverley probably needs to calm it down for various reasons because he's about to get suspended, fined, who knows what else for his antics between what he was doing with the fans, what he did with the reporter, and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, you can take it too far. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously this group is, it's a generation that's different because it's been a generation that's been, raised playing together, whether it's AAU tournaments or international stuff or whatever. These guys have more reasons to make friends with each other. And so I get it's more entertaining from a fan standpoint. There's probably ways in which it makes for a better basketball product. They do get along. It certainly makes for better Olympic teams, I think. The fact that the world has caught up, the United States at least, is helpful that it is more basically there's more camaraderie between the best guys now, and I think that you'll see that make a difference in the Paris Olympics, where you have Durant and LeBron and Curry playing together, and trying to come together for one common cause of getting themselves a gold medal. But yeah, no, I mean it does make for some fun stuff for playoff things, but there's a trade-off either way as far as that all is concerned.
Well, let's set the table. The Pacers and the Knicks, both teams that are have not had a lot of playoff success in recent years, but this is an opportunity for somebody to move forward and play in the conference championship.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Knicks managed to make the semis last year before they got beat by Miami, won that first round series with Cleveland. And so they've got at least some level of understanding there. Obviously, Jalen Brunson, I think, has also had playoff series, with Dallas. Basically, he was with Rick Carlisle and Luka Doncic. So he's had some of it. Obviously, the Pacers have not as a group, but they do have Pascal Siakam, who has won a title in Toronto. But yeah, no, in both cases, it's very much an up and coming group for both of these teams, both coming off pretty tough series. New York in particular, I mean, they drew the 76ers card that you knew was going to be tough considering Joel Embiid was back. So it's a different Philadelphia team that you'd seen in the last couple months of the season when they certainly faded with Embiid out. That's a tough card to draw, and Tyrese Maxey was playing fantastic basketball. So the Knicks had to play really, really tough and win some really close ones and get obviously lucky in game two, with just that mad scramble where they had, I think, 6 points in, 18 seconds or whatever it was, got benefited by what should have been, the NBA even said should have been a foul call against Tyrese Maxey. But they pulled that off. And so both of these teams are here. They got no reason to apologize to anybody for any of those, but it's two, teams that are youngish as far as getting to this stage. Again, the Knicks have a little more experience than the Pacers do, but two teams that are kind of on the rise and trying to get themselves into a situation where they could end up probably playing Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. But teams for which this is going to really matter, whatever step they can take here.
Well, I can tell you ESPN members of ESPN staff have zero confidence in the Pacers. I'm looking at a quick poll, and I think it was 16 different people, 16-0 picking the Knicks to win in between 5 and 7 games. Even the Minnesota Timberwolves and Nuggets, the Timberwolves have 2 people picking them against the defending champion. So I'm like, okay, come on. You're kidding me. You're telling me nobody thinks the Pacers can win? That's probably a good place for the Pacers to be then.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between things they can and things they will. I think they can. I don't think they will. I could be wrong. I frequently am wrong when it comes to predictions. I mean, I picked the Knicks to win this round. So I guess throw me in there, but I'm not. I wouldn't say they can't. I mean, I've seen this team enough times do things that I didn't think it could do. So it won't surprise me very much if they win the series. It's not a toss up. I mean, I would say if you're kind of saying, percentage wise, I mean, I think it's a 60% bet that it's probably the Knicks just because, again, they have a little more experience. I think Brunson's just really well built for this. He's played fantastic basketball. I mean, he's taking a lot of shots, but I mean, they're doing a lot of things that build around him well. I think Anunoby really fits what Tom Thibodeau wants to do. They went 20-3, in the regular season when they had Anunoby. He was obviously out with a lot of injuries, so that kind of shrunk his window there. But he really does a lot of what Thibodeau wants to do. Their bigs do their job, but I like what they have defensively on the wings. They have a great shooter in DiVincenzo, and then Brunson being a really good go-to guy. They're just a tough-minded team. It's not going to be easy. I mean, you got to really work to beat them 4 times. It's going to be difficult. They can do it. I mean, I think, the Pacers beat the Celtics twice, but ultimately I think Boston is the one unbeatable team for anybody in the East at the end of the day. But I do think, I would favor the Knicks in this series, but I don't think you'll get anybody saying that the Pacers can't win. They might say they don't think that they will, but it's not that they can't. But also, I mean, Minnesota, man, Minnesota's legit now. Like, Anthony Edwards is the real thing. He is the real thing. So, that is going to be a fun series over there.
What are the Pacers missing that allows everyone to be confident? Not saying that they're going to get beat 4-0, but that they're most likely not going to win this series.
I mean, I think experience for one thing, and part of experience, I think, is finding out what you don't have yet. I think that's the biggest. They don't know what they don't have yet. That's one of the things you find out when you go to a playoff series is what you're missing, and whether that's individually or collectively. And I think for one thing, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton has had a fantastic season. He's been incredible for most of the year, but he's obviously had some struggles down the second half. Halliburton is not going to be able to just take over a game the way that Jalen Brunson can, in the sense of, I'm going to go take 30 shots and find a way to score 40 points. Halliburton's not built that way. And I mean, he's not built that way mentally, but he's also not built that way physically. And, that I think is something that he has to devote himself to. And it's going to take some physical transformation. I don't know that he's ever going to turn himself into looking like what Jalen Brunson does and be the type of guy that sort of can be a bowling ball and just bounce off of guys and find his way into a mid-range jumper that he knocks down every time. I don't know that he's going to be that, but I do think he needs to be more physically well built to take that kind of pounding, to put himself in a situation where he says, I need to go get 20 shots tonight. I need to go take 25. I need to find a way to score 30 because that's what my team needs. I don't know that, it's not always the best for him to do that. But if he had to, I don't know that he's built to right now. And I think that's a step he needs to take. And so, that's going to require an off season. That's probably going to require several off seasons for him to really be devoted to that, especially because if he's going to be in Paris, he's going to have to be in game shape pretty fast. He's not going to be in physical transformation shape. He's not going to have a lot of time for that. He's going to need a break, and then he's going to have to gear up to go to Paris and gear up to go to Vegas first when they'll be, doing training camp and whatnot and get prepared for that. So it might be a while before he really, becomes that type of player. So, I mean, that's one thing. I think they need another shooter. I think they lost something significant when it came to Buddy Hield, and they haven't replaced it. Now, Halliburton has had to be their movement off the guy while also being their point guard. just doing some exchanging ball handling duty, with Andrew Nembhard, which has worked reasonably well. But I mean, it's forced him to be kind of two different guys. And so I think that changes things. I think they could use somebody like Hield, who really had a lot of gravity and space in the floor. They could use somebody they can pick up. And their defensive guys are tough, but they need to get tougher. I mean, I think there's a step up that they can make. Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith have become guys they can really trust to take on top assignments. They're not Anunoby. And they're not Josh Hart. They're really good defenders. I think they're getting a lot better. And I've got a ton of respect for those guys. So I'm not trying to say that any of those guys are not, turning into really good defenders. I thought Andrew Nembhard got a lot better in that series guarding Damian Lillard. But there are steps those guys can take to become, more top defenders. So there's a lot of pieces. I think a lot of things they can get a little bit better at. Again, they're not going to get their doors blown off. They're going to win games, I think, in this series. They're not going to go out there and get swept. They're not going to go to the Garden and just wilt. They're better built for this now that they've had that freak out moment that they had in Milwaukee. They're not going to have that in the Garden. Again, they've won a couple games. They won a game there this year. They went 2-1 against the Knicks. They're not going to go there and just get, they're not going to fall over. But I do think at the end of the day, there is something that they're going to miss.
What does the Pacers have to do to have a chance to win this series?
Well, they got to rebound. Well, I mean, obviously they got to shoot it first off, and because when they shoot, they're a lot better. When they can make threes, they're a lot better. I mean, when they're forcing their way to try to score in the paint, I mean, they have to get points in the paint. That's a baseline for them because they led the league in points in the paint. But their paint attack isn't usually enough to carry them against a great team. I think that they've got to get pretty good to great shooting, around that if they're going to be able to win games. And the Knicks are not going to make it easy for them to score in the paint, so they're not going to get a 70-point in the paint night, like they've had against Atlanta, who just lets them get to the rim at will. The Knicks aren't going to do that, so I mean, you're going to be lucky to get 50 in the paint against the Knicks. You're going to be real lucky to get 50 in the paint against the Knicks. So if they're going to make that hard on you, you've got to be able to hit threes over top of them. So that's necessary. Obviously, they're going to need, Halliburton's got to shoot at least pretty well. They got to get pretty good shooting from Aaron Nesmith. They got to get Siakam to hit 1 or 2. Andrew Nembhard hit 1 or 2. Need Miles Turner to be able to do that. I think Miles Turner's really big. I think on a bunch of levels, because I think the Knicks have two real, just true, stay around the rim type of bigs, and Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson that they kind of flip out. Turner's got to be able to drag them outside. Turner's got to be able to force them to come out and guard him at the three-point line, hit some of those pick and pop threes, hit those foul line jumpers he hits on short rolls. He's got to be a weapon. I mean, basically in the 2 games they won, he was excellent. And in the game they lost, he was not very good at all. It was one of his worst games of the year was the game they lost, and the games they won were 2 of his best. So I think he's got to be really good. They got to rebound it. They got to make sure that they keep the Knicks off the glass. I think the Knicks grabbed 37% of their offensive rebound opportunities over the course of the 76ers series. They can't let them do that. Obviously, the Pacers have to be able to get up and down in transition. That's really important for them. So to do that, they've got to grab defensive rebounds. They can push on you if you make buckets. Basically, if you celebrate, the Pacers will try to run it up right on top of you, and they can score that way. But that's certainly not the most effective way to run a transition game, is letting people score. That's not the best way to do that. So they've got to find a way to make sure they're not giving up second chance opportunities as much as they can.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.